Your Wednesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower early, otherwise mostly sunny, highs around 83. Mostly clear and 60 on Wednesday night. Thursday, sunny and 84. Mostly clear and 60 on Thursday night. Mostly sunny and 85 on Friday. Decent shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Saturday. Otherwise mostly cloudy with a high around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for letting us do what we do for you each and every morning here on YouTube and Rumble.
Well, it looks like we got another mostly peaceful protest taking place at a college campus with a bunch of students barricading themselves inside classrooms, making demands. And I got to tell you, nothing makes me feel better as a taxpayer than to watch students miss class so that they can shout death to America. I guess the one upside, though, is when they do finally kill America, it won't be our job to pay off their student loans, and something tells me Hamas ain't picking up the bill.
That is the great Nick Freitas, member of Virginia's House of Delegates, and his most recent post, of course, UVA now gripped with student protests on the university grounds where they are protesting for, well, you know, whatever they are told, and we're going to take you inside the consultancy that leads these protests so that they can successfully do the lawfare that they do. But here's what's going on most recently on the University of Virginia grounds.
Casey, I'm near the UVA chapel. Right behind me is where a group of UVA students has remained here all evening since around 5 p.m. and they've remained largely undisturbed. There was a small police presence here earlier. Those officers have since left. Signs put up read, quote, "America is funding genocide and liberated zone for Gaza." The group has been reciting chants such as "Free Palestine." Per request from the university, there are no tents up. 29 News reached out to both UVA and UPD about the situation, asking specifically how long the students are able to remain out here. A university spokesperson says, in part, the group is free to protest in public spaces, but that UVA will, quote, "enforce reasonable restrictions on the time, place, and manner of expressive activities." 29
So, and that, of course, is code for until it starts to make us look bad or we start losing donor money, which is what they want at the end of everything. Thank you for, like I said, you could call in with your thoughts at 434-882-4217. Leave a message, and then we'll play it back, and you'll get my reaction to it. Or you can just ask me a question, and I'll try to answer it as well as I did on the SATs back in the day. You can also send your questions to jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. So, Charlottesville being a particularly key spot, University of Virginia, many of you will remember that protests on the University of Virginia lawn sparked that weekend of discontent that led to the death of two state troopers, Virginia state troopers, and an activist, injuring many others in the car crash that ensued at the end of the riots that were started by the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, violating the plans that had been laid into place for David Duke's little reunion concert that he was holding in Charlottesville. But we watched as this was getting closer and closer, and I've reported to you where it was in the room listening to consultants, lawyers, explaining to the folks who would be protesting David Duke how to use Virginia law. Virginia law requires a police officer to arrest somebody if charges are filed against them. So how do you get charges filed against something? Well, let's say you know there's a particularly notable radio show host there covering a riot, and you get him to bump into you. Well, you can then declare that that was an assault under Virginia code, and the nearby police have to, once a citizen has declared an assault, arrest the notable radio show host or activist, conservative activist usually, and haul them off to the hoosegow. And they do this so that maybe the newspaper or a blogger can get a picture of the arrested conservative, because nothing makes conservatives hate conservatives more, at least in 2017, than being arrested. I think we're seeing a different world now where getting arrested somehow has become a badge of honor amongst conservatives, and the polling numbers bear that out. And I told you this story, and a lot of people said, well, Joe, but these were people who were being consulted in how to make this happen, how to get this happen. Well, now we have a professional consultant, Lisa Fithian, who has shown up in the New York City protests that were just cleared by New York City police yesterday as consulting these skulls full of mush.
I can't help with that. You guys can help with that.
You gotta flip it, I think.
Yeah. Try it right to the love. Camera's back. Camera's back.
Joining me now, Ira Stoll, founder and editor of editors.com. Ira, moments before this interview, the NYPD actually showed videos of Fithian today and mentioned how the tactics of protesters have changed.
And they have, because what they've done is they realized that it was much easier than finding law within the books to use for whatever cause you want to have. But if you can get the right people into the state houses, you can pre-write laws. And that's where we've been over the last 4 or 5 years in Virginia, with Democratic Party control over the Virginia House and Senate, with the exception of Governor Youngkin's vetoes. Governor Northam before him just signed all this stuff into law that allowed for so much of this stuff to take place. And so instead of just pouring through law books, trying to find things that you could use against your opponents, they actually started writing code that would lead them to these places. Now, Lisa Fithian, though we don't have any pictures of her in Charlottesville in 2017, did visit with one of Charlottesville's most notable peaceniks, David Swanson, with a group that I like to call the Charlottesville Center for Peanut Butter and Jelly. He runs a group called the Charlottesville Center for Peace and Justice. But generally speaking, especially when you support terror groups like Hamas, you're not necessarily there to push the peace and justice any more than you're there to push the Spam-a-Lot. And he actually sat down and talked with Lisa Fithian not, terribly long ago.
Thank you so much, David. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you for everything you've been doing all these years and for writing about it so well in this book, which is part memoir and part guide to how to do it. How do you get into this line of work? How do you become a protest consultant?
It's so funny. I don't actually really adopt that label of consultant, even though people, it does work. I mean, part of it is just it's been my life service. And I have been doing it for so long. I've just learned a lot of things here and there, from doing strategy to implementing actions to organizing. And so, a lot of that has just been, moving from learning myself to sharing what I have learned along the way. This is hard work with social change. And so we have to do everything we can to make it as easy as possible. And sharing what we've learned is one way to do that.
So easy as it can be to bring about social change, and understand that it's one thing to have an issue, civil rights, women's rights, transgender rights. I don't care at this point what the issue is. It's one thing to have an issue that you protest for. It's another to just go from issue to issue like a locust, looking for wherever the next payday is. Because that's not activism. That's professional agitator with the intent of bringing down the United States. Ironically, and as Nick Freitas said in the opening, I don't think Hamas is picking up the bill. So I went looking into her organization just to see a little bit. So, you go to Influence Watch, which is one of the better ones, and her group is called the Washington Peace Center. And its number one donors are Sparkplug Foundation and the Hull Family Foundation. Now understand that Lisa Fithian is known in the protest culture world as Mother Occupy. She, I guess, cut her teeth during the Occupy Wall Street movement, ironically, where she probably met the fellow who organized David Duke's little reunion in Charlottesville. But she is known in the industry of being anti-American, as Mother Wall Street. And you'd find it interesting, if not embarrassing, to see that the Hull Family Foundation is based on the incomes generated by Blair Hull. Who is Blair Hull? Did he invent something? Is he a technocrat? No, he's a day trader, or I'm sorry, an options trader. His tactical asset allocation is still the business by which most of the money that goes to Lisa Fithian and her activist groups are made. So hold on a second here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but people like Martha Stewart would go to prison if she knew in advance, let's say, that a stock that she held on to was going to lose lots of value, so she could short sell. And believe me, I am no expert in the workings of Wall Street. I do know that during the Clinton administration, things were tweaked in Wall Street to change how things were done. And certainly one of the bigger firewalls is that banks and investment firms can now be the one and the same. There used to be a firewall, kids, in between investment firms and banks. But if this Blair Hull character is one of the big contributors to Lisa Fithian and her protests, well, what would that indicate? That he's perhaps short selling things, that if she's going to protest out in front of Apple, perhaps he would short sell Apple a little bit? And again, these are the people who, and I don't want to say that it's just a proof that what they're doing is a con, but honest to Pete, if you're Mother Occupy and you've built your reputation on Occupy Wall Street and fighting the corruption that is Wall Street, yet your monies all seem to come from Wall Street options traders. I hate to be so cynical at this hour of the morning, but I mean, what is it they say about if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck? So aside from just the standard of, okay, you're against Wall Street. Okay. Oh, no, hold it. Wait, you're not just against Wall Street. You're against conservatism, or you're against Donald Trump, or you're against... You see, after a bit, it starts to ring hollow. You're not here for the movement. You're here to show the movement how to best do what it's done. And in that, again, nothing against the idea of consultants. Many industries have consultants, and some of them are my friends, and they come and they serve a purpose. They take the 10-mile view and look down into your business, and they try to help you. But if you're just going from issue to issue like a locust, are you really there for the issue, or are you there just for the payday?
This is the Racing Wire Minute with Brian Belansky.
Remembering Wally Dallenbach. That story next.
She can
That's Chic and STEM.
Wally Dallenbach first came on the scene as an IndyCar driver. He scored 5 wins and 27 podiums over a 15-year career. During that time, a win at Indy eluded him, but his career after retiring from driving is what many will remember him most for. He was the chief steward for the kart series, and many of the safety innovations still in place today started with Dallenbach. Innovations like the dedicated rescue crews that travel with the IndyCar series from race to race. He also started the Mobile Medical Center that also follows the circuit. He was seen as fair but firm when dealing with drivers and their shenanigans. Fair and safe, that was his vision, and most agree that's what Dallenbach delivered. Wally Dallenbach died at the age of 87.
Your Wednesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower early, otherwise mostly sunny, highs around 83. Mostly clear and 60 on Wednesday night. Thursday, sunny and 84. Mostly clear and 60 on Thursday night. Mostly sunny and 85 on Friday. Decent shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Saturday. Otherwise mostly cloudy with a high around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
With both Virginia senators weighing in on how the demonstration should be handled by the administration. Many of the students are calling for their universities to separate themselves from companies that are advancing Israel's military efforts in Gaza and in some cases from Israel itself.
But I also believe it is the responsibility, and I believe that it is the responsibility of the universities to make sure that that peaceful right to protest continued is one of the hallmarks of our nation. But I also feel like there are laws, and when laws are broken, the law needs to be enforced.
Senator Tim Kaine says he encourages university presidents to make room for dialogue, but agrees with Warner that there needs to be consequences for those more interested in disruptions.
We hear about colleges where some things are going wrong. There are also colleges that are getting this right. And I think elevating the colleges that have been able to do a good job in having vigorous debate and dialogue short of disruption, that might give other college presidents and university communities ideas about the way to do this right.
the greater the fertile soil for lawfare becomes when people like Mark Warner who laughably say, I believe there are laws. See, this is what happens, is the law books are massive, encompassing entire bookstore shelves, just with 1 year's worth of code. And these are Congresses that have been considered over the last 4 or 5 years some of the least productive Congresses out there. You'll hear that epithet thrown around frequently. And that's where people like Lisa Fithian live. They grow there. That's the fertile soil that they live in. Because when you stop being simply, you have the right to speak your mind, you don't have the right to call on violence against another person. Seems a pretty straightforward thing. And certainly lawyers will bill hundreds of dollars an hour to try to define whether or not what you said actually rises to the level of a threat. But when you're calling for the elimination of an entire race of people, generally speaking, and this is where people like Lisa Fithian, that we talked about in the onset, show up because they show you and they try to coach you into how to just come right up to the edge of the water without getting your feet wet into the violent rhetoric. How to say the things you want to say without actually saying the things you want to say. So when you want to say death to Jews, what you say is, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free. And you say, well, that certainly doesn't sound very threatening, until you realize that Palestine's freedom comes at the expense of the Israelis. So let's eliminate them, and then we can have a free Palestine with every Happy Meal purchase. And that's where the lawfare grows. That's where these Lisa Fithian characters, these consultants that come in and teach the activists how to get the conservatives arrested on live TV. Oh, he bumped into me. That's assault. That's assault, officer. And they do that so that they can make the conservative look bad. They don't want the they want the conservative to be on the front page of the paper in a perp walk. Because until the Trump trials all started, it was a commonly held belief that getting arrested was bad for conservatives. To argue, maybe not so much anymore. But the simplicity of the American law can't sit well, and certainly coming up on 250 years since the origination of the U.S. Constitution, coming up on our 250th anniversary as a country. Certainly over those 250 years, we've written new laws, and after the Civil War, that became particularly important, because a lot of the laws that Mark Warner says in that clip, gee, I feel like there are laws. Well, yeah, Mark, there are. And a lot of them came about after the Civil War in an effort to quell protest. But we're going to go back even further than the Civil War, because that's a whipping horse that we use frequently to say, oh, look, the Civil War did this, that, or the other thing. But in 1800, fella from Charlottesville, long hair fella, famous for writing a legal filing, one of the most famous legal filings in the history of America, perhaps even in the history of the world. Well, that's the U.S. Constitution. That's not the Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events, so this fellow from Charlottesville, well known in the cause for American independence, was serving the president, was ambassador to France. What could be wrong with that? Kind of following in Ben Franklin's footsteps. Ben Franklin, his agent provocateur, who kind of helped Jefferson, kind of picked Jefferson out of the crowd in the Continental Congress to say, maybe John, maybe this guy is the one who, if we get him on board, people will join us in this independence suit. Because John Adams had been having no luck at all convincing the American representatives to break free from England. Most of them had figured out their place in the world and a way to make it work. Maybe they would have been what we would call today rhinos. They found where their pound of flesh was coming from, so they were okay. Adams kept saying, no, we need to be independent from Great Britain because he's been treating us as a country so badly. And he was trying to get this passed, and nobody outside of Massachusetts liked John Adams. He couldn't legislate his way out of a paper bag because most people are just like, oh, he's going to get us in trouble. He was like the House Freedom Caucus, just going on, and oh my gosh, next thing you know, there's going to be a motion to vacate, oh boy. So Ben Franklin says, hey John, there's this Tom fella from Virginia. He's really popular, and he's really good at writing law. No, Jefferson, not Garrett, I'm sorry. Tom Garrett's coming up later, the other Tom from Virginia. So Jefferson is co-opted into this triumvirate, Franklin, Adams, and Jefferson. But then a few years later, Jefferson, now replacing Franklin in Paris, watching the collapse of their society because they didn't have laws that governed the king the way Magna Carta did in England. Here's that his old buddy John Adams, who's been vice president, because back then you were vice president if you finished second to the person who was elected president. And so he had finished second to Washington in the presidential election, so he was vice president, and he was going to run for president. And he was busy trying to get legislation passed, tell me if this sounds familiar, trying to define what un-American activities were, trying to define sedition and insurrection. Jefferson came back and said, well, I know that I'm connected to this guy in history, but this can't stand. A lot of the things that he saw getting strong-armed through Congress by Vice President Adams were things that King George had done, to borrow from Jefferson's phrases, the opprobrium of infidel powers. And so the simplicity of America, even back in 1800, had started to be played with in the gray areas of what is the meaning of is. Once that started happening, Jefferson came back in and had one of the most rancorous and expensive presidential campaigns ever in the history of the United States. And it was only the third one ever. Well, actually, really only the second one ever. Because Washington had made it clear, I'm done. And I mean, really, if you go back and look at the history of the 1800 presidential election, you'll realize that it makes 2016 look like a canasta tournament. But it was over the simplicity of you have a right to speak freely, as long as you don't incite violence against other people, you don't try to violate anyone else's rights. That simplicity was already at that point starting to be dumbed down by people who wanted the state to have more authority over the citizens.
Wednesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower early, otherwise mostly sunny, highs around 83, mostly clear and 60 on Wednesday night, Thursday sunny and 84, mostly clear and 60 on Thursday night, mostly sunny and 85 on Friday, decent shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Saturday, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
So again, the lawfare and how you, and to be fair to lawyers, you guys should be on our side against this, because this is why you wind up with people like Shakespeare saying, kill all the lawyers, kill them tonight. Because, well, all right, that was Don Henley who wrote that, but he was picking up on Wild Bill's point on lawyers. Because lawyers, too frequently are called upon by the government to create these loopholes. And one of the loopholes is personnel. Local governments use this. Our buddy Rob Schilling at shillingshow.com has a great piece, whistleblower educator in local school division, Albemarle County, sent Rob part of a training exercise, and I'm sure there is an investigation. They will leave no stone unturned to find out who it was that leaked this information. Not who created this information, but in a training program for teachers, they were told that it was going to be their responsibility to make sure that if a child says, well, I really feel like a boy or a girl, if that's not their natural gender, that you're not to tell the parent about this. Which this is, by the way, violation of state law, which the lawyers are all gathering to say, well, is it really state law? Can the governor really dictate this kind of stuff? And this has been going on since the beginning of the Youngkin administration, where the educators of Virginia have decided, you know what, we're not going to listen to him. It's the same thing they did to Bob McDonnell on various things. They just said, you know what, we're not going to listen to him. He's only got 4 years, screw him. What are you going to do, fire us all? So the Department of Education has guidance regarding parental notification of things like gender and other psychological issues that all fall under the umbrella of, if a kid is having problems at school, the students' parents are supposed to be notified. But this training document under the purview of personnel was kept from parents, and if you ask for it, it's a personnel document, therefore it's confidential. That professional development documents are not subject to FOIA, they claim. And that they're confidential propriety of the non-government organizations that are hired by the schools to do this training. This is where people like Ibram X. Kendi, a.k.a., you may remember him from school as Dr. Harry Rogers, but he became famous as Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. These non-government organizations get hired by the schools and other government organizations to do work that the government wouldn't be allowed to do if they were doing it themselves. But we've hired a consultant. We didn't do it. The consultant told us to do it. And you can't find out what the consultant says, because the consultant is a private organization, an LLC, an S-Corp, whatever it may be, and they're not subject to FOIA. They're just holding training programs for the schools to help create a better class of teachers. Certainly you can't be against that kind of professional development, Joe. So you go to shillingshow.com, and Rob's got a great piece on this, but the root of this is that the non-government organizations are hired by the government organizations to do the dirty work that the government organizations can't be seen doing. Tell me you've ever heard of any group that would be brought in to do that kind of dirty work, like a hitman. I can't be seen doing this, but you can, because you're a private company and you're therefore free from those nasty FOIA laws. Met former Prime Minister of England at CPAC earlier this year, and she talked about Quagos, quagos, I think is how she pronounces this, quasi non-government agencies and quasi non-government organizations, because they're in many cases in Britain they realized that some of these non-government organizations only work for government organizations. There's no other clientele. So if you're like Lisa Fithian, the Mother Occupy, you can't say, well, we also worked with CVS Pharmacy on their. No, there are no other clients. You only work for government organizations. So, what private? It would be akin to hiring an accounting firm that only worked for the county school board, but then claimed, "Oh, we can't tell you what's going on in our accounting department because it's a private organization." And what makes it a private organization? And this is all while you have people talking about new laws and regulations to regulate in this debate about the protests on campus what you can and can't say, while parents who question these school boards are being put on lists by the Department of Justice as domestic terrorists. The people who are protesting on behalf of actual terrorists like Hamas are being patted on the back and given A's by their professors who put these together. But the professors put them together as part of some non-university extracurricular activity that they happen to foment on Facebook, but it has nothing to do with their work as a professor. Lawfare. It's about what the definition of is. That's what it comes down to. It's playing fast and loose with truthiness. Having just enough truth in a statement so that if you were called to testify about it, you had plausible deniability. All phrases that lawyers love. And that's how you get these school administrators who hold these training sessions with non-government agencies, teaching teachers, just, you know what, don't worry about it. Youngkin's going to be out in 2 years anyway. So the worst going to happen? You might get suspended for a little while. You'll be suspended with pay anyway. Go to Nag's Head and enjoy yourself. Ignore him. He's just going to be there for 4 years. Governor Spanberger will rescind all of those orders. That's what it comes down to. When local administrators wanted to build a highway, the activists, maybe not consulted by Lisa Fithian, Mother Occupy, but certainly by people who've learned up in the same way, ran out the clock. They found all the little eddies and currents in the code that required, so many days notice before a public hearing and so many hours of public hearing time and access to the public hearing and what times of day the public hearing. And it sounds crazy making. Try to cover this stuff. And you would have people coming up and saying, well, according to Virginia Code 17-2 subsection 498, you didn't give the required 48 hours notice before the meeting was going to end. I know you gave 48 hours notice about the meeting beginning, but you didn't announce when the meeting was going to end. So therefore, you have to have a whole new set of meetings for another 6-month period of advising the community that there's going to be a meeting, but this time you have to tell us not just when it starts, but when it ends. And I know that sounds silly, but that was the kind of stuff that was happening. And that's the kind of stuff that they used to create this firewall in between the public, the school administrator, who for the most part will ignore the Department of Education anyway, because there'll be a new governor in a couple of years. And when they're really concerned about it, they'll bring in these non-government organizations to do their dirty work for them. It started, when they started to try to hide their behavior behind personnel decisions. And then when people said, but we're paying those personnel, so we should be able to know what they're being paid, then they would bring third-party human resource companies in, private companies, to do the human resources, to do the job search, to do the search for the candidate. Tell me how many city managers and county executives and transportation directors have been the fruit of some nationwide search held by some non-government organization that we've hired to make sure that we get the best. And it's so that you can't ask them what they're doing because, well, here's all the documents behind us hiring the non-government organization, but the non-government organization, we're sorry. Chris Horner, our friend Chris Horner with the Government Accountability and Oversight Group, govoversight.org, has chronicled this in chapter and verse. The godfather of this behavior is Michael Bloomberg, who has taken his wealth and his riches and has endowed nonprofits, but non-government organizations to hire lawyers, actual lawyers, not just trainers who have been trained by lawyers like Lisa Fithian, but actual lawyers to go to work for your departments of transportation or your departments of environmental protection, or even straight up into your attorney's general office. Now, Virginia has a law currently on the books that says if you're in the Attorney General's office, you can only be paid by the Virginia budget, which is good. I just got a question. Is there somewhere I can go to? A YouTube channel is eating up my data plan when I'm on the road with no Wi-Fi. I don't know. He was trying to tune in on YouTube. I don't know if Rumble is different than YouTube when it comes to this. I think you're talking about just getting the audio-only feed of the show versus having to download all the video as well, and I can understand that. I believe Bill the Grill Guy was doing that with Rumble, but again, I don't know about data plans and everything like that. But thank you, JM, for playing along at home and doing the best you can with it. Trust me, we're in the final 2 weeks. I was told 45 days in the hole while we're waiting for the broadcast to come back on. And there'll be streaming and all of that, and we're going to build a smartphone app to make it easy as well at WTONradio.com. But for right now, this is what we've got. Same on Rumble. JM said, I don't know how to do that with data plans. I know that one of the reasons I generally go with the unlimited data plans because I find myself in these hinterlands in between hither and yon.
Wednesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower early, otherwise mostly sunny, highs around 83, mostly clear and 60 on Wednesday night, Thursday sunny and 84, mostly clear and 60 on Thursday night, mostly sunny and 85 on Friday, decent shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Saturday, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
In the morning, thank you for letting us be of service to you on this Wednesday morning. So last week we told you about the story where George Soros has tagged the Convention of States. And I know that many people, when I first announced that I was becoming an ardent supporter of the Article 5 convention, the call years ago, and they would often bring up people who didn't agree with the Convention of States, people who had not joined on board. Well, so and so doesn't see it that way, Joe, and I said, okay, well, let's debate that point. But I think if that's your logic stream regarding the Convention of States, certainly finding out that George Soros is sending out fundraising emails to oppose the Convention of States, that should probably tell you a little something about it. I hate to say guilt by association or gravity by association. Our grassroots director for the Convention of States project is Nancy Koenig. Nancy, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing just fine, Joe. Thank you.
So I've never individually been targeted by George Soros for the kind of campaign that he has launched against the Convention of States. What is the mood amongst Mark and all the folks all the way down to the grassroots level regarding this targeting by the Soros group?
Well, we're looking at the fact that there's a lot of money out there, particularly with Soros, and seeing that we really have got hold of the right idea. Mm-hmm. If George Soros is going to go after us, then we must have the right idea. There was one state last year, I think it was Montana, I know it was out west. Mm-hmm. We were ready to pass the resolution. There was one person that Common Cause got hold of, mm-hmm. and she changed her vote, and so our resolution did not pass. And that was because of George Soros. The thing that is really important to me here is that I remember several years ago, oh gosh, I guess it was back in 2016, I was talking to Steve Landis, whose seat is now held by, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. It just slipped me. Anyway, he said, well, if Trump gets in, we won't have any problem. We don't need an Article 5. Well, how's that going for us right now?
I mean, the whole point of the Article 5 is in many ways, and people say, well, don't you love Trump, Joe? And I'm like, I don't love the idea of this royal presidency in any aspect. I mean, I don't care whether it's a Republican, a Democrat, a Whig, a Tory, you name the political party. I don't want one person to have this kind of authority over his, as I call them, knights of the round table, his cabinet secretaries, who each have a police department of their own and a court system of their own, operating extra constitutionally. So whether it's a Republican or Democrat, I couldn't care less. And you know, I guess that's part of the problem is we've made this. Or we've made the world we live in so political. It's my R's versus your D's that we take the abstract of something like the Convention of States and we forget about it. Nancy, is that what you're hearing from a lot of folks?
Yes, and as I look at what is happening in Washington now, I see even more that we have lost our balance, mm-hmm. the balance of the branches of government. And it's appalling to me. More and more, we have these executive orders. And I see that what is so crazy is I remember President Trump had an executive order to override what President Obama had done, mm-hmm. with the Dreamers, I think they are called, those children right. who were born to the illegal aliens. Mm-hmm. And the Supreme Court overrode his executive order, but not Obama's. It's
Right.
absolutely out of balance.
Right, and what we've seen is a government that's just sort of seemingly making up its own rules as we went along. And as we've talked about in the past, but I think it bears repeating, this is exactly what George Mason was afraid of, and those who, when Mason presented the idea of the Article 5 being written the way it is, to allow for states, in absence of congressional action, to move against the centralized authority, it seemed to be an overwhelming hit when he brought it up.
Yes, it was unanimous. And that's one thing I keep meaning to look for, to see if there was any other proposal that was unanimous in the Constitutional Convention. They knew human nature. They understood human nature. I think because they were all God-fearing people, and they understood what happened with Adam and Eve. So this really is the only bloodless way to go about it. Like getting a new president, and God willing, we have a president who will more closely follow the Constitution.
Absolutely.
That's not going to do it. We have to get back to the 17,000 words.
Well, and so when's the next meeting of this now targeted Soros group? I hope that this allays a lot of people's concerns, because and I'll quote from his own letter, his fundraising letter. I'm honestly worried at the sheer number of states introducing new bills and how desperately lawmakers are rushing these bills through their state legislature. We barely made it into 2024, and we've already seen nearly 100 bills for Article 5. It certainly seems like he's doing your job for you. He's telling us they're coming, and we need to get on that bandwagon, don't we, Nancy?
Absolutely. And it really seems to me that when someone like Soros, someone like Common Cause is going against us, and Mark Meckler knew this was going to happen, that we have, we're really doing the right thing. Our next meeting is the first Saturday of May, and it is that first. Yeah, this Saturday, first free coffee from 1 to 3. We'll be there just to chat and to answer your questions. We don't have formal meetings frequently. We just are there to talk with like-minded people, or people who have the values, who want to see the Constitution restored.
Right.
So first free coffee this Saturday from 1 to 3. We'll be there to talk with you. Please come and eat, particularly if you're skeptical, because I think that you will see that this is the way to go, the only way to go.
And then later on in the month, you're at Sam's Kitchen. I should remind folks, if you've never heard of First Free Coffee Bar, it is in the Hollymead Town Center, in the part near Kohl's department store. Tons of parking, and a big space to gather in there for that. And then you're at Sam's Kitchen later on in the month?
We're at Sam's Kitchen every fourth Saturday from 9:30 to 11. We've been there since 2016. They even had us during the pandemic. So first Saturday and fourth Saturday.
And voting will have just started on Friday, so hopefully lots of folks will have already cast their ballots in the Senate primary. Nancy Koenig, how do people find out more? It's Convention of States. Let me see if I do this right. Well, you know what? Let me let you do it, because I may bollocks your address.
Conventionofstates.com. And I just figured out a way to remember it. Convention starts with a C, and com starts with a C.
Oh,
Conventionofstates.com.
And of course, then if you get in there, it's Virginia Calendar, and that'll show you all the events that Nancy's got going on, things you can be a part of, right?
That's conventionofstates.com/Virginia dash, as in a minus sign, events.
Thank you so much.
That brings up our calendar.
And thank you so much, Nancy. Hang in there. As a friend of mine once said, you know you're over the target if you're taking flack, and it sounds like we're over the target with the Convention of States. And God bless you, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you. God bless, Joe.
Wednesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower early, otherwise mostly sunny, highs around 83, mostly clear and 60 on Wednesday night, Thursday sunny and 84, mostly clear and 60 on Thursday night, mostly sunny and 85 on Friday, decent shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Saturday, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
It is Joe Thomas in the morning, and it was just we were in the break there, and I was thinking about JM's issue with audio versus video, and of course, it's the world of showing beats, just telling you go where people are. But I do know of an audio-only streaming service we use internally. We did back at the old radio shop, so we may see. And again, this becomes, let's test the limits of technology, boys and girls. I mean, we do, for the most part, a glitch here or there, have the audio and the visual all syncing up with YouTube and Rumble, and that's fascinating enough. But in the Elton John library of all the science I don't understand, just my job 5 days a week, I think we might be able to use this application called Mixler. I know it has a downloadable smartphone app, and it's audio only. And unlike SoundCloud, I think you can kind of tool around SoundCloud. You've got to be a member, and again, it gets a little YouTube-ish there, because if they don't like what you say, I actually think it's kind of quasi, perhaps even owned by YouTube. I don't know who has it or not, but anyway, so we're going to try that. We'll see how it goes, but that'll come at the end of today's program. JM and anyone else who sees their data plan getting gobbled up like so many little tokens in a Pac-Man game. Waka, waka, waka. Waka Waka. Post yesterday on Facebook by our dear friend Delegate Tom Garrett from Virginia's 56th District espoused 5 things we need to start doing. And I thought of Stephen R. Covey's wonderful series of books, The 7 Habits of Remarkably Successful and Good-Looking People, or whatever they were all called. So he has deigned to join us to kind of take us inside this treatise on the things that I think speak to a lot of people who, Tom, feel like the world has just become a little crazier than it was even hours ago. Good morning. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I got to go out and download Mixler.
I'll share the links if it works. We're not even sure it'll work yet, so don't hold me to that yet. So you're back in the fray. As Peter Capaldi's TV show said, you were back in the loop for the first time in several years as you joined the Virginia General Assembly. And is there a connection? Is it just correlation or causation as to why you've come up with this treatise on things we need to start doing more of as a community?
Well, I'm not going to get too deeply into specifics, but I know how I've always tried to do things politically. And while I have many regrets in my life, that's not among them. Um, and I'm watching other people do what they do and just shaking my head. I think it was The Art of War in Sun Tzu, wherein I'll paraphrase and not quote, he suggests that the most successful battle is the battle that you win without ever having to fight.
Yes, I
that
think
you don't draw your sword.
Yeah.
And I watch people set out to lay waste to political opponents that they don't need to lay waste to, right? And so I think I counted recently. I think I've run against 21 people in the course of my various nomination contests, et cetera, and I consider 19 of them to be friends. Now, I didn't necessarily while I was running against them, but, my dad would, and I'm paraphrasing here, would say, I don't like a sore loser, so I don't have a whole lot of like at all for a sore winner, right? And so if I've never lost a race, and if I was fortunate enough to win a race, the first thing I wanted to do was be nice to the person who ran against me, as long as I felt like they did it in a manner that was, above board. And I see a lot of let's grind them in the dust, which is, I don't get it. And I think it's bad political sort of thought to make enemies where you could make friends. So that's just been a pet peeve of mine for years, and it's probably now more than ever. So that was the genesis of it, is why can't we all, pardon me, I'm going to channel my inner Rodney King. Why can't we all just get along?
Well, here's and and I don't mean to be contrarian, because you're far, your intellect, your mom has told me, is much greater than mine. So
I guarantee you, my mom did not tell you that.
But here's my only contrary to that, and because I know what people are going to say. Oh, that's what they. Again, the they people over there, that's what they want us to meet them in the middle, and then they'll move further to the left, and then we'll go meet them in the middle, and we'll keep moving further to the left.
I never said meet them in the middle. I mean, we post different YouTube speeches. I'm going to engage in the debate, and I'm going to try to win the debate, but the debate should not be ad hominem.
Well, but that's my point, Tom, is that right now we live in a society where so many things wield power over us. The regulatory capture, and you and I have talked at length about the things that you have to do in order to accomplish something or even get to go. We've talked to builders who talk about hundreds of thousands of dollars in regulatory fees and such that they have to come up with before they even put a shovel in the ground. And I think, and I don't know what your 5 things that we need to do to start winning hearts and minds. I'll let you chronicle them better than I could. But I think one of the reasons we've wound up in this place is that we at least feel like there's a lot of people who wield disproportionate authority over us. So therefore, who gets to decide how that authority is used becomes, pardon the phrase, blood sport. We feel like we're defending our lives. And maybe that's the fault of the media. I don't know. You tell me. But does that at least explain why some people feel like I have to vanquish my adversary because otherwise they're going to force me to live the way I want to live? Sort of like what we're seeing on these protests on grounds.
When you've already beaten somebody in an election, why are you still a jerk to them the next day? I mean, that's just it, right? I mean, and so that's what I'm talking about. Look, I have never run against somebody I liked, but 19 out of 21 people I've run against, I like right now. And so what that means is that the race is over and you can let go. But I think to me, what drives it is a desire to control absolutely everything and everyone and bend people to our will. And as a recovering alcoholic with 6 years sobriety on May 24th, I can tell you that that's a bad plan that never ends well. You've got to let go of those things which you can't control. And so it's not, I mean, look, somebody's going to be an a-hole. Let them have that ground. Cede that ground to them. Do you think, rhetorically, that these student protesters are helping the cause that they purport to support, or only hardening some people against it? People whose team I want to be on, people who are rational thinkers, who are fair and reasonable and not driven by hate. So it just, again, people mirror the behavior that that they find attractive or that they find successful or what have you. And if somebody, and again, this has nothing to do with seeding the fight or meeting in the middle. We should stand strong on core principles, because if we don't stand strong on core principles, they're not core principles. But it can be done without being a jackass. And Ronald Reagan embodied that. People attacked and attacked and attacked and attacked. And he deftly pushed them aside with a smile and a witticism. And that's like a lost art, right? Because that won more support than saying what a jerk he is, Lion Ted or whatever. So the 5 things are, and I usually write my own speeches, but I have to say, Joe, my mom wrote this speech over the course of probably 20 years of raising my sister and myself. Number 1, if you don't know that it's true, don't repeat it, right? You can't control what you hear, but you can control what you repeat. So if you don't know it's true, don't repeat it. Number 2, always look for opportunities to build something rather than destroying something. Let the other people be in the destroying business. The building will attract. Support candidates who you like as opposed to opposing candidates who you don't. The two obviously aren't mutually exclusive. You can get into I like Joe and not Mike, because that's fine. But when you set out to destroy the guy you like as opposed to supporting the person you do, it doesn't net good results. And let me ask this rhetorically: do you feel better about yourself when you do something to hurt someone or something, or when you do something to help someone or something? Right? Yeah. So that's life advice. Number 4, tell the truth where you can discern it. You're going to get it wrong sometimes, because we were told lies about things like, oh, I don't know vaccines. And number 5, this is shocking. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. There's no, hey, they're wrong, we're right. That's pretty good. That's a compelling argument. That's not mean. So,
and I would change the word campaign or candidate to anyone. I mean, I think there's the idea, that you are who you're associated with. I've told my kids this. I'm sure your kids, you have adult children as well, Tom, and at some point or another you've heard the expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I pull them over because they were in their early 20s, and that's a common thing that people say, especially when they're getting out into life and they see other people who may not, in their estimation, be as worthy of success as they might be. But who you know is a movable feast in this country, as long as we can keep it that way, because you can change the circumstances of who you know and find those people that force you to be the best you can be, rather than just surrounding yourself with people who promulgate the idea of, you're great, man, you're just perfect the way you are, because that's never a good sign for growth. Is that fair?
Right. So a person can be judged by the company that they keep. And another one my dad used to say in one way, shape, or form or another is, you can judge a man as well by his enemies as his friends. There are a lot of people who don't like me, and at some level, I'm humbled. But as long as I'm doing me the best I can do, then why do I need to go after them? I don't. And so that glancing sideways sort of alluding to them that I just made is about all they're going to get. Well, because I can't control other people, but I can control me. And if I'm doing stuff that's wrong, I need to fix me. So, yeah, and again, the other thing is, this is intra-party, it probably more so. I mean, we wonder why Republicans lose elections. Well, I do believe that there's a large percentage of quote-unquote activists who draw far more joy in eviscerating other Republicans than they do in winning elections. And that's why.
Well, let me ask you this, because, and I think it goes back again to the authoritarianism that I think a lot of people feel. Is it real or is it imagined? There are real regulatory captures that a small business owner has to deal with. We just went through a story, Albemarle County Schools. Our friend Rob Schilling has a piece on his website, schillingshow.com, where and there again, you were talking about it. I love Rob. I've loved Rob, as long as I've known him.
I just find it
because,
wonderful that you now have the freedom to plug shillingshow.com. I think that's awesome.
I used to do this when we were on competing radio stations. You know why? Because Honey Badger don't care, and I never cared, and that's why I like your 5 points, Tom. But he was reporting on this issue where the Albemarle County School Division hired an outside non-government agency to hold training sessions for their teachers, in which the training session said disregard any state laws regarding letting parents know about gender issues your kids may have. And of course it's hidden under the FOIA layers of, it's an NGO, so you can't FOIA, whatever it may, the way they hide this stuff. But that's the kind of authoritarianism, that soft-core, hand-in-glove authoritarianism that I think people feel like, well, I've got to, win some sort of crusade almost. And maybe it's because our lives have become so good we're looking for great crusades. But that kind of stuff, they're treating the governor like he's an afterthought, the governor's Department of Education. They're ignoring him because they know he's going to be gone in a year and a half.
Yeah, it's almost like we should have a 2-term governor possibility, but I don't know who would carry such legislation. I don't know that you're now, and maybe I'm speaking past you, but I'm not sure that these two analogies lay squarely on top of one another. I mean, that's nefarious and that should be addressed, but that doesn't need to be addressed by ad hominem attacks on the neo-fascists that have foisted it upon us. It should be addressed by saying this is bad policy and we should hire different people, right? So that you can hurl invective on the one hand, or you can debate the merits of the policy on the other. And I'm suggesting debating the merits of the policy. Now, are there bad people out there? Sure, there are, but I mean,
but there was a
we're
fellow.
not going to change that.
There was a fellow I knew. He was a documentary film presenter years ago. Did a documentary series called Exile, and at one interview he said, "Why do they do it, JT? Because it works." You may have heard him say that. We just watched the school board election in the same school board race where it was all ad hominem attacks. It was all name calling. It was all and the opponent of the subject of the name calling won 2-1. So how do we change those hearts and minds if it seems that it has political alacrity to get ourselves elected?
I'm not sure it's not baked into the cake in that particular election, right? I mean, I admired some of the people that chose to run in Albemarle County, but the results over the last however many years tell us that was an uphill fight to begin with. With that said, I oftentimes begin to wonder whether I'm in an anachronism or there's any space left for me in the political realm, because there's just the way things are being done does not. If you watch the speech, which you can find it at Delegate Tom Garrett at youtube.com, I start off by saying I'm absolutely sick and tired of the way politics works. And guess what? I'm absolutely sick and tired of the way politics works. And it's too bad, because God didn't make me good at that many things. And I think I'm pretty good at convincing people and making an argument. By the way, you need an attorney. I know a guy. And so, maybe I've just outlived my usefulness, because, sure, they do it because it works, and we should do it differently. I swear I think it can still work. I mean, that's been my sort of election and re-election strategy all along. Look people in the eyes and tell them what you're going to do, tell them the truth, and they'll be so freaking shocked by the refreshing nature of your candor and honesty that you'll win the election by doing it differently than everybody else did it. So again, in no way, shape, or form am I suggesting we cede the battlefield, but
how many battlefields are there? Maybe
we're also going to, in the intra-party concept, we're going to be supporting one of two candidates, or whatever, how many ways the nomination contest is. But one of the people that you were tearing asunder today, you might be supporting, I hope, tomorrow when they run against Joe Biden or what have you. So I just don't know why we go this route. And again, when you've beaten someone, you can stop beating them.
Well, but I think it is also human nature, and I love the 5, and I think it's a great point, and you should get more run for it. But it is, unfortunately, one of our human weaknesses to indulge sloth. Isn't it one of our 7 vices, Tom? And isn't it much easier to say what you're against than it is to determine what you're for?
Yeah, just because it's easy doesn't make it right. I mean,
oh yeah,
I'll give you that, but I'm just tired of it. I mean, and I pardon me for I don't usually sort of take the easy way out in interviews with you, but I mean, this is I don't understand it. I mean, if you've beaten somebody in an election, you don't need to keep on beating them up and treat people like you'd want to be treated, and all these sort of, and I used to laugh at the poster that my college girlfriend had on the wall. Everything I really needed to know I learned in kindergarten, except it turns out 30 years hence that she was onto something.
Yep. That was actually Bill Bennett, I think, was the first one who said that. Anyway, Tag, I've got to run, but God bless you, sir. Thank you for doing this. Where can people find these 5 steps again?
Yeah, well, I got a YouTube channel at Delegate Tom Garrett, which has got some pretty good uploads on it. And Delegate Tom Garrett on Facebook is always a good spot. I would love for people to follow there. So, Joe, always a pleasure. And
Steve Carrington.
I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old and soft.
No. Steve Carrington said thank you for all you do there as well. Just posted to my YouTube channel. But I've got to run. My friend, you enjoy this beautiful morning.
God bless.
Wednesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower early, otherwise mostly sunny, highs around 83, mostly clear and 60 on Wednesday night, Thursday sunny and 84, mostly clear and 60 on Thursday night, mostly sunny and 85 on Friday, decent shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Saturday, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
In the morning, and thank you for doing what you do, which is join in with us. Sorry for the abrupt musical change there, or the accompaniment. Clicked a button I shouldn't have clicked, but that's not, that is, as they say, par for the course. He is the great one taking us inside the sports headlines, where he has left his notebook open for us all to read. He is Mac McDonald, the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, their program director there, and of course, Central Virginia sports legend. How are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Joe, for that very kind introduction. I've stayed up and watched a lot of really good basketball last night. Boy, I love the playoffs. We'll get into that in a second. UVA doubled up VCU 8-4 at the Diamond in Richmond last night. That completes a series sweep, by the way, and that's 5 straight against the Rams. UVA played long ball, 4 home runs for this team last night. Harrison Didewick, his 17th dinger in the 8th, wow. And that's the 5th most ever in UVA single season history. Okay, Cavalier skipper Brian O'Connor impressed with his team's performance last night as they now come back home for an 8-game homestand. Here's the
I thought our team played a really good game. It was great to see Jacob Ferencz hit that 3-run home run. at the in the first inning to jump us out on top. A number of guys hit some balls hard. Casey Sauke, I thought, had a great night with 3 hits, and he was really locked in. It was good to see Bryson Moore go out there and give us another start and continue to extend him. And, the plays that we made defensively on the infield were outstanding.
So 8-game homestand, as I said, Navy tonight. It was a Maxey performance from the Sixers, as in Tyrese Maxey, former Kentucky Star, scored 7 in the final 25 seconds of regulation. Philly topped the Knicks in overtime, 122-106. New York led by 6 with 30 seconds to go. Maxey hits a couple of threes, gets fouled, 4-point play. Anyway, the Knicks lead the series 3-2. They got 40 from Jalen Brunson in a losing effort. The series will shift back to Philly Thursday night. Milwaukee, 29 apiece from Bobby Portis and Chris Middleton. I think they've only got like 7 guys on the bench. The Bucks stayed alive, winning a home game against the Pacers, 115-92. And Cleveland's Evan Mobley, all 7 feet of his frame went up, got the block by Franz Wagner, the layup. In the final seconds, Cavaliers beat the Orlando Magic 104-103.
The composer was playing? Wagner was playing?
Yeah, Franz Wagner. Of course. The Orioles have won 6 out of 7 against the Yankees, 4-2 the verdict last night. It was game 2 of the 4-game set. Dean Kremer, 7 innings of 2-hit baseball, and the O's managed a 3-run fourth with a couple doubles, couple singles. Following the Marlins sweep, the Nats were stifled by the Rangers, losing 7-1. Texas pitcher John Gray holds Washington to 3 singles through 8. Well, yesterday, James Madison introduced their 4th ever athletic director. Matt Roan is going to be a perfect fit. Well, that's what President John Auger said JMU is a perfect fit for him. He thinks JMU is a perfect fit for him. Anyway, it's a perfect fit all the way around. And Matt Roan called it, what he called JMU, the everything school. Matt Roan passed the torch. Jeff Bourne was there yesterday. He was retiring, short-timer after 25 years. And he said that he had eyed the Duke's program for a long time. He tells a story about his dad being a truck driver and leaving Pulaski because Roan went to Pulaski High School, spent 3 semesters at Virginia Tech, but his dad used to drive from the Pulaski area up to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So he would see the Bridgeforth Stadium being built. And he said his dad says, boy, there's some great things happening at JMU. Anyway, when it's all said and done, it was Matt Roan talking about Jeff Bourne, who he said he just texted all the time for ideas. And he goes, this is a good fit for sure.
I text him a lot more than he texts me. I always have questions for him. With 25 years of success, there's nothing that I can offer him. But I have leaned on him certainly over the last 5 years. And over the last several months, I've really leaned into him just to learn more about this place and what makes it so special.
Yeah, they got together. They were talking, during the NCAA tournament, and he's a Virginia native, former student athlete, a lot of experience as an athletic director. He served as AD at Eastern Kentucky, 3rd AD director at JMU in 53 years, and replaces Jeff Bourne, but the 4th overall. So, yeah, pretty good stuff. And Matt Roan, I think and I hate to use the cliche that I've already used, but he is a good fit. So when you're a good fit, that's a good thing,
Well,
when you're into an AD position.
You're taking over with expectations now. You're playing, bowl games, and you're as somebody was mentioning to me, because their kid goes to Liberty. he said, what's all this, Joe, about JMU you talk about, and you never talk about Liberty? And I said, oh, no, it's just right now Liberty is kind of just in the off season doing its thing,
right?
Build on a New Year's Day bowl game. Never mind. But you get these schools like Liberty and JMU, and I think, not to overplay it, but these are examples of not trying to become Virginia Tech overnight, or Alabama even. But Old Dominion is another one. You just especially in basketball, you just chip away. You say, okay, we're going to do these things. We're going to get here, and maybe these are the schools that are going to become the beneficiaries of the portal, but you left us off with a ponderable yesterday, the world of the portal versus NIL. How does a JMU stack up in the world of name, image, likeness versus Virginia with its profound list of alumni and that kind of thing? I guess that's going to be the question this guy is going to have to answer.
Well, and I think you're going to start to hear a lot of noise from, again, and our friend, Dr. Wood Selig, the Matt Rones of the world. I mean, even Jeff Bourne maybe is going to be in a consulting role. But I think and I'll use the term mid-majors, but your JMUs and Liberties and Old Dominions, as you talked about, I think they're going to be the ones that will start to really lobby and get in front of the NCAA saying, yeah, we need the most level playing field that we can have. Now, will Old Dominion and Liberty and JMU ever be able to raise the nil money that Alabama and Georgia raises, or even UVA or Virginia Tech? Probably not, but there's a chance that their alumni base. But now with the bill, the bill that was passed, right? So where you can have you can have a tax deduction by giving. So it's going to make a big difference, I think, for the smaller schools for sure.
Well, and then you go back into the story you shared with us. Was it yesterday, 2 days ago? They run together, Mac.
Yeah, they run together.
Of the students, first somebody says, "Hey, we're going to give Reggie Bush back his Heisman."
Oh, I know.
And then all of a sudden, hey, there's a class action suit saying, "Hey, we didn't get any nil money 20 years ago either."
Right.
That's going to become a bigger issue. And I think name, image, likeness goes away under the sheer weight of the inability to manage it all, because you're going to have a school like St. John's, who's in the middle of New York City, where some big star player like a Ralph Sampson could go there and become like Caitlin Clark because he's in New York City. But does he choose Virginia Tech because it's this little quaint school in the hills of Virginia? Some people will, but I think name, image, likeness is going to collapse simply under the inability of being able to manage it.
And to echo, and that's a great take. It won't collapse. It will transition into, and you're right. I think it'll transition into the contract now of a 3-year commitment to a school, and you will be paid, but you have to sign a contract. So it is going to be almost play for pay. Okay. So the nil money, this guy over here in this locker room stall might have 6 people he's endorsing, but this offensive lineman only has a couple, but they're going to be on an equal playing field.
Oh, so I see what you're saying. So in the battle between name, image, likeness and the transfer portal, you think the transfer portal loses?
Right. Well, I mean, you still can transfer, like you still can transfer schools, but hopefully it'll be level as far as what you can make as a football player at Alabama. In other words, so to try to keep, a kid at Mississippi State can make the same as an Alabama player, and to try to level the playing field. And that's what I think the NCAA is working towards. I know that's what Saban used to talk about all the time. We have to have an equal playing field from a recruiting standpoint. So Alabama can't call a kid from Georgia who's not playing. He's a 3rd string quarterback and we need a new QB. Hey, we've got $1 million for you on the table right now. That's what they're trying to get rid of. They're trying to get rid of that idea that, well, look, I'm making the same at Georgia. It's a 3-year contract. I'm making the same at Georgia as I will at Alabama.
Force them to have to buy out of that contract. It would make signing day interesting again.
Correct. It's like, because we're going to get into the college kids signing players contracts and bargaining agree. I mean, it's going to be, bargaining agreements for free agents. But as long as it starts to work towards getting level, at least as close as we can get it, it will make a big difference in college athletics, and then there won't be this poaching thing going on. Bud was telling me when I was up there a couple of weeks ago for their spring game, Bud Foster was telling me that, they had 2 or 3, their quarterback, the quarterback received like 3 or 4 phone calls. He wasn't going to tell me who, but there were schools going, hey, Conrad, you can make a lot more money with us. We really liked how you developed last year. the drones kid. He goes, you made great strides. Come play with us.
Right, and I can imagine, Big Ten,
Yeah.
SEC, these schools.
So you're still being recruited. You're still being recruited, and here's this high school kid, really, really good high school kid who is just trying to find a fit somewhere.
Right, and the parents of those high school, that high school sophomore who can run a 4.140 is sitting there, and the agents are swarming in, and again it comes back to what do you
and
do?
there will always be pressure, and I know we're short on time, but there will always be pressure to win. So the Brent Prize of the world and the Tony Alley, they have to figure a balance of how to recruit, nil, portal, but I still got to get high school. I have to win somehow. I have to put it's roster management. I have to build like you have. You have to build the best radio roster you can. And God knows why you still choosing some guy from Florida who can't catch a fish. So
it's all right. We don't pay you for the per pound, but the deadliest catch of the
thank goodness. Yeah, I could retire if you were doing.
We'll talk to you in the morning, sir.
All right, brother. I'll see you tomorrow. We're over the hump. I'll see you then.
Wednesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower early, otherwise mostly sunny, highs around 83, mostly clear and 60 on Wednesday night, Thursday sunny and 84, mostly clear and 60 on Thursday night, mostly sunny and 85 on Friday, decent shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Saturday, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in. Like I said, we're investigating, and we're just really the issue, because it was brought up earlier in the program regarding data usage for the show, that audio, I guess, burns up less data than trying to bring up Rumble or YouTube. So we're trying to figure out if there's an app. I mentioned I've used Mixlr as a streaming service. There are a lot of them, Stream the Yard, a lot of these other things. But what I've found, just in my limited ability during the pause for the cause to find, is a lot of them, if I'm already feeding audio to YouTube and Rumble, they don't want it, or you can't get it. It's, you have to dedicate to that, and then they tell you, oh yeah, you can put your audio on YouTube. Well, all right, then what's the point of putting a collared shirt on then? A couple of things in there. Our Tom Garrett interview, the phrase, the Bulldog Buddha, comes from Bob and Esmont, and authority, I think, is what I was trying to bring up to Tom, and I may have inarticulately brought it up. The idea of we should be able to get along. Just because I disagree with you, and Reagan famously said, somebody who I agree with 80% of the time is one of my closest friends. I'm celebrating my 31st wedding anniversary today. My wife and I don't agree on everything. That's inhumane. There are terrifying science fiction movies about that kind of unanimity of thought. It's what does that dominion hold. Now, you've entered into a contract with your wife, name, image, likeness notwithstanding, and we'll get to, Clark, your point on pay to play in a moment. Being one of the representatives from the great state of Alabama, though he's a war eagle more than roll tide, I'll be curious to read his thoughts on this. But in the negotiated associations of your life, you have people that you choose to be friends with, you choose not to, radio or TV programs you choose to watch or not watch. It still comes down to you're not going to agree with everything. So here I am, like I said, today is my 31st wedding anniversary. And do I agree with my wife on everything, or does she agree with me on everything? Heavens no. That would be insane. There are gaslit marriages where one party tries to do that to the other party. And I think that's kind of what, when we get into this, it's a battle against an ideology. When you read and watch what particular people want to do. Tom mentioned vaccines. I don't know if you saw this. This may get us our third strike on YouTube. But Roman Balmakov at Epic TV reported yesterday. Do we have the story of there? Okay, this is from Epic TV, and I don't know what in the world. What is? No, stop that. I don't know what that is. But please close that down. I want to get Roman's story here on the vaccines, since we mentioned it.
A legal document has just been made public for the first time, in which one of the largest pharmaceutical giants on the planet, AstraZeneca, admitted the fact that their COVID vaccine can cause a deadly blood clotting condition.
So, and he goes in and he says, I think it's 3 out of 100,000 patients that AstraZeneca admits get this blood clotting syndrome. There's several different names for it. And there will be people that say, see, we told you, that's why all these 25-year-olds are dying of heart attacks. And then, of course, you'll get people who will also bring up all the coroners saying, these are weird, I've never seen a blood clot that looks like this before. And these are all real things, but in the effort to have unanimity of thought, because for some reason it was the only way we could battle COVID-19 was with unanimity of thought. We were told that simply saying anyone else smells smoke was akin to yelling fire in a burning building. And I've always believed this, being a practitioner of the spoken word for 37 years now, that you have a right to speak. You have a right to speak. You don't have a right to be listened to. And this goes back into Tom's number 1 point, which was, if you don't know it's true, don't say it. So a lot of people will tell you that AstraZeneca has admitted that these clots come from its shots. And Johnson & Johnson has also pulled its COVID jabs off the shelves because of an increased risk of these blood clot issues. But I will also tell you that according to AstraZeneca's documents filed in British court yesterday, that it's 2 to 3 instances out of every 100,000 is what AstraZeneca is reporting. Anyone else smell smoke? See, I'm not yelling fire in a crowded theater, but I am asking, does anyone else smell smoke? And that's where we have to be, because my dominion over you ends when you click off on the stream. And nor should I claim any dominion over you. This is unfortunately what the American left, and I know I'm taking a partisan stand in this on the follow-up to Tom's points, but their media, their public affairs, their public relations is all agree with us or you're on the outs. Look at what's happening to the women who used to be protected by Title IX, who are now being told, yeah, you're going to finish second to this guy who was like a C-grade swimmer in college, but now he can win the women's gold medal because he says he feels like a girl today. And if you question that, well, then you hate gay people. And you make these ridiculous leaps of logic that don't make any sense. And I had a story up that I wanted to share with you. Jerry Seinfeld is catching flack from people who are mad because he says great sitcoms are gone because, see, I believe great sitcoms are gone because all the funny people are writing for insurance company commercials. But great sitcoms really are gone, according to Jerry Seinfeld, because of the radical left and their extreme PC crap. His words, not mine. He points to an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer started a business by hiring homeless people to pull rickshaws around the city. And he said, would that episode make it onto TV today? The ability to point out hypocrisy with humor is one of the hallmarks of a civilized society. When you lose that ability to tell jokes about people, to point to the emperor and not just say the emperor has no clothes on, but to make fun of the fact that he has no clothes on, or make fun of the fact that he thinks he has clothes on. When you lose that ability, you have become a totalitarian state. Whether you have a Senate, whether you have, a phrase, we hold these truths to be, we the people. All right, I have a piece of paper, I have a coffee mug that says we the people. Does that mean that we are in a place where we the people rule? Now, the creator of Always Sunny in Philadelphia said Jerry's problem is he's only looking at this from the network perspective. And that because they were off-brand, if they were on Fox Cable, and then Fox had to say, you know what, this is way too extreme even for our network, so we're going to create FX for the really pushing the envelope stuff. You have to be able to, like I said, not just point out that the emperor has no clothes, but lampoon the fact that they think they're wearing clothes. Because if you can't do that, you might as well be Venezuela, where they'll just throw you in jail for questioning authority. Because authority is supposed to come from you and me. So on the subject we were talking about with Mac and whether the portal, the transfer portal or name, image, likeness, play-to-play in college athletics continues. War Eagle Clark says pay to play will move the best talent to the best market areas. Take the Southeastern Conference, for example. Regions that don't have the population density to support professional facilities have success in amateur college sports. Once it becomes professional college football, the best talent will gravitate to the best pay, which will be the larger markets. Well, that's what I see in this sort of Marxist lurch to wage controls, where instead of allowing these college athletes to do that, Clark, the states and the funders of these universities are saying, no. What we'll do is we'll create a fund, and then the universities will connect the athletes to the McDonald's ad or whatever it is that they were going to wind up doing. And we already have suits where somebody wanted to endorse a CBD provider. And of course, well, you can't have that. So it becomes maybe a teachable moment where we show people that the harder you try to control things, the more you create a black market. This is always what had been at the subtext of college cheating scandals, where some coach is sliding some untoward benefits to a player so that they choose his college over another one, because you have these controls. And the more you try to control freedom, faster than you can say, Milton Friedman, a black market is going to begin. And that's at the end of the Soviet Union. That's what we watched, was this black market had become more volatile than the open market.
Wednesday forecast calls for a slight chance of a shower early, otherwise mostly sunny, highs around 83, mostly clear and 60 on Wednesday night, Thursday sunny and 84, mostly clear and 60 on Thursday night, mostly sunny and 85 on Friday, decent shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Saturday, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high around 70. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
In the morning, thank you for joining in, letting us have a little fun sometimes this morning, thought-provoking though it may be, but sometimes you just have to say, especially as the weather is getting warmer, we gotta, have some fun once in a while. Joe Thomas in the morning, and fun is important. I mean, recreative activities are important, and I remember the first time I heard the phrase yacht rock. A friend of mine had started a radio station called The Mater, and that was its format, was yacht rock. And I said, wow, what a perfect music format for everything. And one of the biggest progenitors of that, obviously the core artist, the same way the Beatles might be a classic rock artist, or Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Buffett would be certainly the king of yacht rock. And he turned around and said, you know who I like? I like Yachtly Crew. And I know you say, no, Joe, it's pronounced Motley Crew. Not this bunch. This bunch is a Yachtly Crew. And Philly Ocean is the lead singer and the leader of the band. They're coming to this area for the summer. In several places you'll be able to see them this time. Unlike last year, they've got a new album, a new EP out, Seize the Day, spelled the way you would think it would be. Philly, good to hear from you again. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. So good to be here. We're doing great. And as you said, yes, this year is quite a huge year for Yachtly Crew. We're coming back to Dr. Pepper Park and many other venues that we have yet to play, big venues, and we're incredibly excited to see how this thing is taking off. It's really awesome.
So as you begin Los Angeles and Vegas and some of these places, and then you make your way back here to Roanoke and Leesburg and so many places in and around Selbyville, Delaware, which for people who don't know, they say Selbyville. You've heard of Ocean City. Selbyville is part of the Ocean City area there. First, talk about Seize the Day and the new record that you've just put out there to kind of go behind it, and people can find out more about you at yachtrockband.com. I thought I'd be able to say that more easily than that, Philly.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister.
Talk about the new record, Seize the Day, your EP, and where people can find it.
So Seize the Day is our debut EP. It has a handful of our favorite yacht rock songs. Christopher Cross, Ride Like the Wind is on there. How Deep Is Your Love? We also have an original song on there. We got to work with somebody incredibly special, Chris Lord-Alge, who, for those of you not necessarily in the music business, you may not have heard that name before, but he's worked with everybody, literally from the Rolling Stones to Green Day to Tina Turner. I mean, the names that he has produced and mixed are endless and incredible. And he really brought the energy and enthusiasm that we put into our live shows onto that album.
Great.
And so it's something we're incredibly proud of. You can stream it right now anywhere you get your music. Just search for Yachtly Crew, Seize the Day. It'll be right there. And then we also have our first original yacht rock song, called "Sex on the Beach," and this is a song that we wrote during the pandemic to kind of keep ourselves creatively engaged. And we did it with the intent to kind of write a song that fit in with these 70s and 80s soft rock hits. And for those of you who don't know what yacht rock is, and you've heard the term before, you do actually know the music. It's all of your 70s and 80s hits, you know, from people like Toto, Christopher Cross, Holland Oates. And it's a really, really high energy, fun show that we love putting on more than anything. It's amazing.
And going into the summer, this is perfect, you know, for it. I think everyone can agree when you know, when you're at the beach, no matter what you're doing at the beach, regardless of what music, you know, that's what you're in the mood to hear. That's what you want to hear. You just want to hear enjoyable. And I
Yeah.
know as big as grunge got, it never really caught on in places like Ocean City, Maryland, or Nag's Head. So. So the tour will start, you know, it starts actually tonight. You're in Los Angeles, and then you said Vegas and all that. But July, you're going to be in Annapolis, and the
Yep.
July 18th, 19th, you're going to be in Roanoke. Then Ocean City area, Selbyville on the 20th, and then in Leesburg on July 21st. So you can get all these
Yeah.
tickets in advance. You can get yourself booked in to see this. So you're really hitting the road east to west, aren't you, Philly?
It's crazy. We, you know, we've been doing this since 2017, and each year it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. You know, last year we were all over the country as well, and somehow this year we're going to even more places, playing over 100 concerts throughout the country.
Right.
And it just seems to have this quality. I think when people come to our show, they see how much fun we're having, and they hear this music, and it's such nostalgia, and they want to be a part of it, and so they tell their friends, and so we've kind of been seeing this exponential growth for the past couple of years, and it's amazing.
So it's the Tally Ho Theater is the nearest one by in Leesburg, unless you're heading down to Roanoke as well, where you can see them as well. Talk about packing the whole band up, you know, and getting, you know, a long road trip there, and managing the time and space to make sure that when somebody sees you in Leesburg, they're seeing the same energy they see in a place like Lost Wages.
Oh my gosh, you know, that's the coolest thing is like now it's caught on so much that we'll go to a theater or a city for the first time where we haven't played, and it will sell out. And people will be lining up around the block wearing captain's hats, wearing sailor outfits, ready to
Sure.
hear this music. And they're so enthusiastic. And that's really, really the cool thing that's caught us by surprise a couple of times. You know, we played Annapolis last year for the first time, and it sold out like weeks and weeks ahead of the date. And we're seeing that more and more, and it's amazing.
Well,
It's so cool.
and I think people understand the role of music is to enjoy yourself, to engage,
Yeah,
to, you know, maybe remember some things, but, you know, get your captain and Tennille on for a little while
that's
there,
right.
and remember, you know, that there was a point to a lot of these songs that, you know, I'm sorry, people get a little heavy sometimes, and they start thinking about
Yeah,
the grander meanings of some of this stuff. And sure, I mean, you can sit there and chop up the you know, Jimmy Buffett catalog and say, what was he really singing about there? But I mean,
yeah.
at the essence, if you're not entertained by it, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we all need to feel good. And
Hmm.
I think the other thing that we endeavor to do is to be a space and to be a group that brings people together and kind of allows them to forget the many troubles of the world and life, and just create a happy place where people can, you know, come together and have fun together. I think we need that in society. We need those places where we all just have fun together. You know, it's almost like there are few things that are more human than that.
Oh, so well said. Philly Ocean. The band is Yachtly Crew, spelled in the way with the umlauts and everything. I'm sure the folks at Motley Cruz, their lawyers have spent some time with you to make sure that was okay. But then I mentioned Roanoke as well, since we were sending people up to Leesburg. You'll be at the Dr. Pepper Park at the Bridges
Yep.
in July 19th in Roanoke as well. Travel so safely. You know,
Thank you.
don't lose all your money in Vegas because
Yeah,
you'll know
definitely.
if they're doing extra encores that Vegas was a good stop for them. But yeah, where's the best place people can see the videos? Should they go to your YouTube channel or just go to your band
Yeah,
website?
check us out. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook. You can pretty much just search us on the internet and you'll find us. We're pretty much everywhere. And our schedule is posted to our website, yachtlycrew.com. That's YACHTLEYCREW.com.
Billy Ocean, thanks again for catching up with us, and we'll see you here in Virginia in July.
Thanks, Joe. Take care. We'll talk to you.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you, Philly, for bringing a little fun back to it every now and then. But I want to finish in a frightening story, a story our friend Tommy at Blue Ridge Life magazine broke. Daniel Rutherford and the Commonwealth's attorney in Nelson County announcing the conviction of Ray Utaro on multiple charges of inappropriate relations. I'll read to you from Tommy's piece at BlueRidgeLife.com. The Nelson County Emergency Services Coordinator, former Nelson County Emergency Services Coordinator Ray Utaro, has been convicted on 18 counts against sexual crimes against a minor. Daniel Rutherford told Blue Ridge Life that he'll be seeking the maximum sentence possible, which is life in prison. He was, according to Rutherford's office, convicted by a jury spanning 2 days, found the Utaro guilty on 4 counts of aggravated sexual battery of a minor, 4 counts of distributing oxycodone to a minor, 4 counts of sodomy of a minor, 2 counts of object sexual penetration of a minor, 2 counts of carnal knowledge of a minor, 1 count of abduction with intent to defile a child under the age of 16, and 1 count of sexual battery of a minor. These crimes occurred while the victim was 11 through 15 years old, and an ugly scene in Nelson County's history drawing to a close, one hopes. Anyway, there are also reactions to a couple of different things. Let's get to the phones at 434-882-4217.
Joe, cue up Buffalo Springfield, because something's happening here. Charlottesville was a test run. It was wildly successful in terms of propaganda. So subsequent operations have followed. 2020, we had the mostly peaceful protest during the Summer of Love. That led up to the election in which Basement Biden, or Basement Brandon, let's go with that, got more votes than anybody in history. Now in 2024, I don't know, it kind of seems eerily similar. Same presidential candidates preceded by essentially the same riots.
Consulted by the same people.
You know, it's quote-unquote students now instead of Antifa. But 47% of the arrestees in one report I looked at are not students.
No, not
it's
even
on
at the
college
university.
campuses instead of blue cities. But you tell me, what's a more friendly environment? Blue cities or blue campuses? Seems about the same. You got the same outside agitators, the same funding. Oh, and these are spontaneously popping up all over.
Mm-hmm.
The students are doing what they've been trained to do. These students are programmed to protest. And what are they programmed to protest? Oppression. Who are the oppressed? Whomever their Marxist handlers tell them are the oppressed.
Well, and I think, and you bring up the point, I think college campuses clearly have become much safer than even blue cities when you see blue cities starting to turn and say, okay, enough. But, one of the things that, and this harkens back to our first segment this morning on the Lisa Fadian that's been caught as the consultant for the Columbia University occupists. She is called Mother Occupy in the circuit of this. And once there's a circuit in something, and this also ties into what we were talking about with Delegate Garrett, is this protest circuit that this Lisa woman is apparently a well-compensated consultant for, it stops being about the issues and it becomes just showing a protest. I think, as Dr. Clark was pointing out there, is that it's just about the act of protesting. And so what are you protesting? Life in America. And the danger in that is, as Nick Freitas said in the onset of the program today, if America's gone, who's going to pay back these kids' college loans? Because I don't think Hamas is going to be picking up the tab. Anyway, thank you for having some fun, some serious, all points in between. Until tomorrow morning, who knows what we'll get into. Oh, Wayne Cruz, the author of 10,000 Commandments, on tomorrow's program, amongst you and me as well. And we'll see if we can figure out a way to just send audio simply to folks without having to go through the whole data mining of imagery, because I don't want to look at this. So why would you? But I get it. I understand. Sometimes showing does beat just telling, and I'm trying to keep from doing this all morning. But it is allergy season. So until tomorrow morning, I love my wife dearly, and we're going to celebrate our 31st anniversary today. If I'm not here tomorrow, then you'll understand that I didn't do very good at it. So Mike Lindell's products might have been brought to bear on me, but I'm pretty sure I'll be here tomorrow at 6 a.m. Until then, so long, and thanks for all the fish. And I love you, Elaine.